Hi guys, welcome back. We're going to continue talking about the modern era in British literature. As I mentioned yesterday, we're going to compare and contrast the Victorian era with the modern era, which we are learning about this week. The Victorian era was a time where they really had an emphasis on society, what should be expected. You had to get married if you were a woman. You had to marry a man of fortune if that's where your family came from. Let's give an example, Pride and Prejudice. If you've seen that movie or read that book, you know that the Bennets are set on marrying their daughters off. That was a big deal in the Victorian era. Women had to get married so they could provide financially for their family. During the modern era, we don't see that as much. Women are starting to not get married. They're starting to get jobs, be painters, be writers. So we're going to kind of compare and contrast with a Venn diagram, okay? I've already written the Victorian era, the modern era. All right, big thing in the Victorian era, like I said, was social roles, okay? Social roles was very important in the Victorian era. And social roles you couldn't work your way up to this. This is where you were born, the family you were born into, okay? You couldn't really be born a poor farmer and then become a rich banker. It just didn't work like that. We see a lot about characters through dialogue. Okay? We see how they're feeling through dialogue or other interactions with the people near them. Another thing that is common, some themes that are common in Victorian literature, is marriage, like I mentioned before. That was a big deal. Women had to get married. And also, man. The idea of man. We really don't see a lot of women rising up to the occasion in Victorian era. Let's go ahead and move over to the modern side. We will talk about Trilling's essay, which you should have read last night. In his essay, as you remember, he was very set on be true to oneself. Okay? What does that mean? We'll talk about that more on Friday. Y'all have your writing due on Friday. Be true to oneself. That means it didn't really matter what society wanted you to be. You had to be true to yourself. You had to do what you wanted to do. We see that a lot in modern literature. We see Lily in Into the Lighthouse. She wants to be a painter. She doesn't want to be like Mrs. Ramsay. She doesn't want to be a mother or what's expected of her. She wants to be a painter. So she's being true to herself. Yeah, she struggles with it. We see her struggle through, like we talked about yesterday, the stream of consciousness. Okay, we'll abbreviate. Okay, that was a big deal if you remember. The roles in modern era were decreasing. A lot of people felt unplaced. Even though they were born into a poor family, they could have worked themselves up. They weren't just set in one role, society role, okay? So the British in modern era were also moving towards Western ideas, okay? The idea that you could work for your money rather than just have old money, have your family provide for you. You actually had to work for it, okay? The British are always the last to know, which is a funny joke. America was kind of already evolving, and Britain were still caught in their ways, their old ways, and they still kind of are in a way. But we see the importance of modern literature. We see how it's transformed from Victorian era to now what we know today, the modern era. We see the changes in women. We see different things like that. So in your discussion post, I want you to describe the two. Describe the two in written form in about a paragraph. Compare and contrast the two. Things that you've seen from past literature that you've read from the Victorian era to now as we read Into the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf, okay? I'll see y'all tomorrow.